Well, what do you think? Did it work? Was it worth it? Was it worth it? Is this the reason why Corona TV was delayed? Not at all. Not at all. But I've found a few new things regarding StreamYard, and it energizes me and it makes me excited, and I'm happy to be here at our new time. I don't know if it's our new time, but maybe it's our new time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What happens at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time? Well, many things actually happen. First of all, it is 4:20, and apparently 4:20 is Wee Day. So happy Wee Day, everybody. Not really sure what that means right now, because I am going to get my enjoyment from something else. I am going to do something now that I feel like I've earned and deserved. A little bit of Oban Little Bay, and I am going to have a nice stiff drink. Why? Because the world has gone to hell. Why? Because I deserve it. Why? Because I cried like a little baby today because of some technical difficulties. Cheers, guys. That is good, let me tell you. Go get yourself a drink. Come on, go get yourself a drink. Enjoy. And if you like this format, we'll keep doing it at 5 p.m. You might actually think I've been drinking for a while right now, but I haven't. So I am happy because I figured out a few things today, as I was saying, and I'm happy because Monty's on the show. And, you know, Scott and I go back. We go back. And it's just brilliant to have him back. I try to choose photos when people are cleanly shaven and they look like they're about 12. And I think this was when Scott worked at Ford. So I chose that photo today. And so he's going to be on the show, and we're going to hang out, and we'll go as long as it takes. And it's going to be a great show because he's a great guy and he has some amazing, amazing content to share. So let me tell you a little bit about what happened today. So obviously we're meant to go live at 2. We didn't go live at 2. Why? Because I upgraded my Mac OS over the weekend to Catalina something, the Catalina wine mixer. I think it's the Catalina wine mixer version. And points to see who knows what movie that's from. Come on, let's hear some comments. What does Martin have to say? He said, cheers, and this time is my preferred time. What happened to Maker's Mark as your preferred beverage of choice? That, I can see Scott in the background. That is Scott's. That is not mine. Hello, Joey. Sorry to leave you hanging today, my friend. I'm sure Scott will, maybe he'll have a Moscow Mule or Maker's Mark. Also, this show brought to you by Maker's Mark, the ambassador program, the original ambassador program. But anyway, upgraded to Catalina, and all of the permissions associated with screen sharing and broadcasting were revoked. And what happened was, I was about 25 minutes before the show, and I was getting everything sorted out and set up, and I could not share my screen, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. You know, it turns out that actually what happened was there was a step in the process, and that step was a pop-up that I had to allow Chrome permission to be able to share screens, and it was unfortunately behind the browser. So it was a pop-up, but it was actually a pop under, and I couldn't see it. And so at the end, frustrated as hell, cursing, crying, screaming, pulling my hair out, I started shutting down all my windows. And of course, 3 minutes, no sooner than 3 minutes after I decided to postpone the show, I saw all of these little buttons waiting for me. So it was so funny how it all turns out, 3 minutes. But was there something good that came out of it? Well, yes, there was. First of all, as parents, we are particularly good at giving advice to our children. Why? Because we're calmer, we're less emotional, we're a little bit more detached. They may see their world ending, but we don't see that. We also have life experiences, and we're better problem solvers, especially when it isn't for us. And so typically we will point them out to an area and help them understand maybe where they might have gone wrong. Well, that's what happened to me today. My wife walked in Immediately she looked at me and she said, well, why don't you postpone the show? And I was like, I can't postpone the show. Scott's going to be on in any minute. There are 8 minutes to go. I'm going to figure it out. Of course, she was right, in a way, parenting me, as many wives do to their husbands. And I ended up postponing the show. But what good came out of it? Well, what good came out of it is the fact that I'm doing it at 5 p.m. with a scotch. This is now not Jaffe juice. This is Jaffe gin and juice. I got my mind on my money and my money on my mind. And maybe it's a better format. It works for Martin. Maybe it works for you. Let me know if you prefer the show at 5 p.m. versus 2 p.m. I always wanted to actually have a cocktail and be able to get a little bit looser, a little bit more relaxed, and create a different energy with the show. So I'm only looking at this positively, only positively, in terms of being able to adapt, right? Because isn't that what entrepreneurs do? Isn't that what we need to be doing now during this apocalyptic time? We can't fall to pieces. We can't fall apart. We have to be able to move and bob and weave and figure out ultimately how to make sure that we get on with the show. And so let's do that. Let's get on with the show. And Scott will be on the show in about a minute. But of course, there are a bunch of little things that I just want to move through with you first. Well, first of all, amazing lineup this week. Unbelievable. Scott today, I mean, do you need more? You don't. Wendy Mayhew tomorrow. Wendy focuses on something that is becoming a real focus area of mine, which is ageism in the market. And she looks at the senior market, the aging market, but the intersection between the aging market and entrepreneurship. And we're going to talk about that tomorrow. In general, what's been going on, but now, especially during COVID-19. Tanya Adleta is going to talk about being a single parent, also an entrepreneur, and freeing herself from organized religion. So that's going to be intriguing. We'll hear what she has to say about that. I'm not really sure who that guy is, who Thursday's guest is. Mitch Joel, something. I don't know. He apparently is my brother from another mother. But for those of you that know me, would know Mitch, 6 Pixels of Separation, one of the great thought leaders out there. And then on Friday, if you haven't had enough, Dr. Dean Allen is going to come in. And I just attended a webinar over the weekend. Wow. I mean, wow. He's got a PhD in history and social history. And he gave an entire presentation on the Spanish flu and COVID-19 and understanding, if you want to understand the future, you have to go back and understand the past. And so Dean is going to be talking, Dr. Dean is going to be talking about that. Got a whole bunch of birthdays over the weekend. I'll move through them really quickly. Glenn, Dean, Alexa, Jim, Farrell, my cousin, Debbie, Shayna, Paul, David, Dean the second. It's the same Dean, but I was able to take off one of the profiles and add another friend because I'm still at 5,000. Raja, Allison, Taryn, and Heather. And then on the 19th, Laurie, one of my School of Rock bandmates, Chris, Mark, Lux, Phil, Grisel, I hope that I pronounced that correctly, Tinzar, Joel, Felicia, Robert, Jarrett, Pedro, and Toby, and for today, and one of the hardcore Spurs fans, Carol Walker, Heidi, Lauren, Jackie Lindenbaum, who you see there, actually with my brother-in-law, with Stuart, Toby Bloomberg, Kelly, Chris, and Carlos Gonzalez, who isn't one of my friends, but he is now one of my StreamYard friends. So he's another live broadcaster. And, I've been lucky enough to have several celebrity friends of mine do shout outs for birthdays. Well, I have another one, another celebrity that, wanted to just say hi to you guys. If you like Leonard Skinner and you like Peter Keys, well, then you're going to love this little shout out just for you.
Hey, CoronaTV viewers, this is Peter Keys from Leonard Skinner. I want to wish you all a happy birthday to those of you celebrating at home. I don't play happy birthday, but I will tell you happy birthday. Happy birthday, y'all. All right, stay positive, stay connected. It's all good. We will get through this together. God bless.
I mean, he is such a good friend, and you know, I've been so lucky to have Macy Gray, and I mean, it's just amazing, all these celebrities coming out and sending happy birthday greetings to you guys at the end of the day. So something a little bit maybe, you know, less exciting, but I think it's important. Steve Garfield posted this on Facebook, and I just thought it was important. I mean, we talk about the circle of life, we talk about birthdays. These were the obituary pages in one of the Boston, I guess in the main Boston newspaper. And he posted this, and I thought rather than just show you one, I would show you them all. It is something that we probably have never seen. It is unprecedented to see these beautiful images of these wonderful people, hopefully who lived long lives, and even some of the senior people that you see in the photos still left before their time. And so we think of all of them, even if we didn't know them. But yet it's another way of thinking, I think, about a resurgence for newspapers. As I discussed a few weeks ago, we should go back to getting our news in the morning and the evening, or maybe 3 times a day, and not polluting our hearts and our minds with all of this talk radio and all of this, you know, biased opinion. We need to go back to the days of good old journalism. So, you know, just something, again, a new use, a weird use of newspapers that we didn't think maybe would be as meaningful to us as it is now. So just to look at the numbers, because again, we had a bit of a break over the weekend. I cut them down because I think it's important. The only thing I'm going to dwell on today is in the US that we have doubled the number of deaths in 10 days, in just 10 days, from 19,700 to 40,724 as of today. It's incredible. It's incredible just to think of these logarithmic and exponential curves. And that's the last data point that I wanted to share with you today. And from this moment on, it's not going to be as kind of as serious, maybe. I mean, it will be profound because Scott's on, but it maybe won't be as serious. But I think when we look at the international cases, the difference between, you know, the linear and logarithmic curves, we still see America separated from the rest of the world. And it doesn't matter that this is a big market, because we know there are other big markets out there like China and India, regardless of reporting. The logarithmic curves, I think, are a little bit more, not reassuring, but we actually see that this disease in the world still lives on this maybe 70-day, 40 to 70-day curve. And we do see similar data points. So the last curve is my curve. And it's my fat blogging curve. And I said to you, and I mentioned to you that, you know, this Scott, I can't see him at the moment because I'm on a different screen, but I don't know if he remembers the days of fat blogging, or when I was fat blogging back in the 05s, 06s, where I said this would be weight loss by community. So I've now, I guess, lost, I was 195 pounds this morning. I'm going to tell you what my weight is every Monday. March 18th, I was about 201. So, you know, about 5.5 pounds. And you know what, if something good comes from this, many good things will come from this. I hope one of the good things is to be able to get back into shape and lose a bit of weight as well. Well, you've been waiting enough, my friends. It's time to bring in Scott Monty. Let me just bring him in right now. Mr. Scott Monty, welcome to the show.
My goodness, Joe, thank you for having me on. What a pleasure it is to be back with you. It's been ages.
It has been too long. And I actually reached out to you and I said, you know, Scott, if anything has come out of this period of time, it is the ability to reach out to people. It was something that Jake Thompson said on Friday as well. Reach out to someone you haven't spoken to in a while. Just make the effort, and we go back. We went back such a long time, and we just haven't spoken as much. And so I mean, I feel like although I feel like I spoke to you 3 hours ago, but maybe that's just a bit of deja vu all over again.
It is. Well, to be quite frank, I was the one who insisted that we go to an hour when it wouldn't be unseemly for us to be seen with a drink in our hands. So cheers to you, my friend. I'm drinking a Maker's Mark Old Fashioned on behalf of Martin, who recommended it.
And you did not. I don't know if you changed your drink or not, but I think you're on brand, my friend.
I try, and I'm on brand with the bow tie too. You know, that headshot that you used was the headshot I used to have while I was at Ford. And Ford, of course, was business formal at the time. It's since gone business casual in embracing the mobility mentality, where it's trying to be all things to all people. But occasionally I would wear a bow tie. And when you wear a bow tie, even for one day, you are branded as the bow tie guy. So when I left, somebody made me a logo with my initials and a bow tie in between them. And I said, you know what? I may as well just embrace it. So that's the way people expect me to show up now.
And that was the beginning of your brand, right? Your personal brand.
Pretty much. I mean, look, I had a brand before I got to Ford. Obviously, they heard of the work that we were doing together at Crayon when we used to work with big brands like Coca-Cola and Panasonic and American Airlines. And, you know, I did what I did at Ford, and I guess that increased my personal brand. It's not what my intention was while I was there. Obviously, I was there to speak on behalf of Ford. But I took what I learned for those 6 years that I was there, which, by the way, were during the financial and automotive meltdown, the original one. And those 6 years were really like a decade or two of education with what I walked away from, simply because we worked under such immense pressure. You know, when you cook with a slow cooker, not a slow cooker, an Instant Pot, it's under pressure. Right? And the reason that people like doing that is because it cooks your food a lot faster and with the flavor all kind of baked in. And that's kind of what happened to me. I cooked a lot faster and with the flavor baked in. So when I walked away from Ford, there was a lot of rewarding material that came with it, and a lot of lessons that I could then pass on to clients.
And stories to this day that I think set the bar. You know, you in many respects, the Ford Fiesta program that I still remember, it took a lot of the theory that I'd maybe written about in some of my books and brought it to life. And I still can't believe that the world has not figured out influencer as a best in class, best practice. We're not talking about the Fire Festival. We're talking about the ability to tap into authentic, credible, passionate creators, micro creators, etc. Yeah,
it's really something, because I gave a presentation last summer to a Lansing chapter of the PRSA, the PR Society of America, and they wanted me to talk about strategic communications. And, I put together a presentation, and I wanted to have a few case studies to talk about. And I went back to the Fiesta movement, which, by the way, was in 2009, 11 years ago now.
Amazing.
100 influencers, 100 cars that were only available in Europe, brought over expressly for them and given to them for 6 months. All they had to do was create one video a month. That's it. In the meantime, they did what they do. They went out and they were active in real life as well as online and created amazing content. But the principles there were the same. If you're confident in your product, hand it over to people, allow them to experience it, give them feedback mechanisms, get out of their way, right? One of the amazing things that we did that people still can't believe is that we took all of their content, not just their monthly videos, but all of their content, and we funneled it right through RSS feeds from everything onto a Ford-owned site. And we didn't edit it. We didn't touch it at all. We just let that authenticity come through. And those principles are timeless. It doesn't matter what platforms we're talking about today versus then. We didn't have Instagram then, it was Flickr. But the principles are timeless. They speak to human nature and to how people think about trust and authenticity. And that's exactly what brands need today.
Yeah, and listen, at the time we were talking about I don't even know if the Edelman Trust Barometer was out, but we were certainly talking about, who do you trust? Someone just like me. It's still true to this day. Do we trust government? Do we trust big business? Do we trust all these brands saying we're all in this together and we got your back? And I mean, it's unbelievable. The more things change, the more they stay the same, right?
Absolutely. I mean, look at what happened today with Shake Shack, right? I don't know if you saw the headlines, but Shake Shack is getting big headlines for an apology that they wrote, giving back $10 million from the PPP, the small business loan, that they quite frankly shouldn't have taken in the first place. They said the reason they gave it back is twofold. One, they discovered, oh my gosh, they've run out of money, and there are other people that are far more deserving of this than us. But at the same time, they also note, oh, we secured funding from other sources. So it's as if to say, well, we don't need your money anymore, so we'll give it back. And the side point is there's no mechanism for the government to redistribute this 10 million. It's basically like a prepayment of the loan. There's really no mechanism in place for the government to do anything with this now. So it's an empty gesture. It's one that they had their backs up against the wall on, and they've made a PR move that, quite frankly, they shouldn't have made that business decision in the first place. And hey, if there's anybody that knows about not taking government bailouts, it's Ford Motor Company, because that's exactly what we were faced with in the fall of 2008 when the auto bailout was coming. Ford stepped up with the other two automakers and said this would be good to support the industry, right? And when it came time to actually collect the funds, Ford said, we're okay. We've actually funded ourselves already.
Wait, Ford didn't do what United Airlines and American and Delta did, which is thank the government for their handout, on their websites. Yeah.
Well, and look, I love Delta. I think they've done an amazing job in the last 5 years, in particular, in stepping.
Maybe Delta didn't say it, but I know the others did. It drove me mad.
I know. But look, all of these airlines have raised prices. They nickel and dime you for everything, and they've done really well since the last financial bailout that they were beneficiaries of. And in the last 10 years, there have been 66 bankruptcies filed in the United States by airlines. So you do the math. Are they deserving of it or not? Were they prepared for this moment or not? And what should be done for them versus, other deserving little guys that will certainly go out of business without the help?
So I have to say, first of all, you spoke about kind of what was the dress code at Ford? You said was business
formal.
Business formal. So it's business formal here at the headquarters of Jaffe Juice. Here are my shoes that I'm wearing today, keeping me nice and warm. And we got a whole bunch of comments. I know Philip Robertson is here. Philip will be on the Zoom call afterwards, but I'm glad you are on Facebook Live. Bob Farnham said, Joe pivots. I'm trying, I mean, if I'm doing anything, I'm pivoting. And then Philip said, with enough scotch, right? There's plenty more, and I'm going to it now because I'm drinking like a fish and I'm feeling great. Rax is here from London, and he said, I used to follow Joseph and Scott's respective blog. What's a blog? Back in the day when I started in the industry nearly 2 decades ago, and here we are together. So it's good to have you back, Rax. And Luke said hi to me, and then Luke said hi to you, Scott. Rax actually spoke about this idea, which I think is interesting, right? He said there's a movement in the UK around slow news. And isn't that interesting, right, with respect to mental health and, the anger that we have after one of these press conferences or, depending on what side of the, of the fence you fall on. We don't need that. My mental health is great in the sense that I didn't watch any press conference over the last 3 or even 4 days, and that's okay too. It's not going to change my life at the moment. And Anthony Calumet said 2 legends. He must be referring to Scott twice as well. To wrap up his Monday, hello to you, Michelle. Howard Greenstein said, great way to end Monday afternoon. And Stuart Silverman said he votes for 5 p.m. So maybe we're going to change. So, Scott, there's a lot of engagement, man, and it can't be about me. It has to be about you.
Joe, maybe you should do it at 4:20.
4:20. 4:20. Just hold on a second. Where are those gummies? Wait a second. It's not legal in Connecticut. I didn't say anything. Can we cut that? So, Scott, let me ask you a question, which is, this has been a great live. We're actually catching up live. But I wanted to ask you a question as a resident of Michigan. You guys have been in the news, the crosshairs, your governor, protests, etc. Michigan as one of those hotspots. What is the experience from someone who lives in the state right now in terms of what's going on?
Yeah, well, it's a little concerning here in Michigan, because as I look at the current statistics, we have 31,424 cases in the state, and we've had almost 2,400 deaths. We're at 2,391, which, if you do the math, is a 7.6% mortality rate. That's on the higher end. Massachusetts actually trended to number 3 in terms of the most cases identified, but their mortality rate is half that. It's about 4%. There's a major concern, particularly within concentrated areas like Detroit, which is not only a concern just because of the density of the population, but because of their financial standing. This is hitting the poor demographic a lot harder. But you move out, to the burbs and into rural Michigan, and there's another kind of population density out there too. It's the kind that'll show up on the front steps of the State House in Lansing to protest and not stand 6 feet apart from each other, and to tie up the traffic, which is actually blocking entrance to the hospital. It's a major, major concern. And I'll tell you what, if I can, I will share an image with you that I put on Twitter. Everybody's favorite new brand of scotch, Dunning-Kruger. When there are more doctors who've spent their lifetime and their careers studying infectious diseases, it's time for Dunning-Kruger. When you know more than the doctors. That's just it. This is where we've gotten in Michigan, and it's concerning because they're only doing more to infect people. I saw a Newsweek article just today that in Kentucky, there was a spike on Sunday of coronavirus cases after there had been a week of protests. This is exactly what it gets you. Cause, meet, effect. Look, I understand that people want to get out. I understand that people's livelihoods are at stake, but people's lives are at stake. This is not about lifestyle. This is about life. This is not about liberty. This is about life. You recall one of our founding documents is the Declaration of Independence, where we talk about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In that order, life is first. Without life, it doesn't matter whether you have liberty. If you want to go and focus on liberty first, and you're sacrificing someone else's life to do that, that's a concern. This is about public health, and there's a public in public health for a reason. It's about thinking of each other and acting as a global, or at least as a statewide community, if we can. But individualism seems to trump everything else, pun intended.
And if I may say, and it's funny because I had a business meeting on Zoom where we had adult beverages with Jason Burnham, whom I've worked with in the industry for a long time, and we've decided we're going to do he's going to be on the show soon. We're going to talk about that very thing, Scott: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But what is happiness? Can money really buy happiness? And can money really buy health? And at the end of the day, it isn't just life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's a virtuous cycle. And happiness and life are interconnected. And so I think you spoke beautifully and eloquently and put it into perspective. And that, at the end of the day, look, we will never know. We will never know what it might have been or could have been or should have been. But until we have the answers, and we don't have the answers, and I talk to many doctors all the time, and they keep telling me, we don't know squat. We think we might know. We hope we know. We have enough evidence to determine something, for example, immunity and to the flu and antibodies, but we're not quite sure about this one.
Right.
I think you put it really, really well.
Well, you want to know something concerning that I read last week? Christopher Penn does this wonderful daily briefing. You can find it on Substack. It's called Lunchtime Coronavirus Briefing. And he comes up with a lot of scientific articles and data and facts to help supply this. And he tries to filter out some of the media stories. There was a study in the New England Journal of Medicine about the Pine Street Inn in Boston, which is a homeless shelter. And of the 396 residents that were there at the Pine Street Inn, they were all tested. And 147 of them came back positive. Right, so that's about 50% positive. However, those 147 people, every single one of them was asymptomatic, was not showing any signs of COVID-19, even though they had the virus. So basically what that means is you need to treat everyone as suspect right now. Whether or not they've been tested, whether or not we know what the long-term effects are, you need to treat the world as if every single person has COVID-19 and to take precautions accordingly.
Yeah, well, I mean, well said. And it's so funny because you're preaching to the choir, to the converted, but that message, and that's why last week when I had Shiv Singh on talking about fake news or the delegitimization, the minimization of the role, the powerful role that the media plays right now to get the message out. Yeah, I mean, exactly. And it helped me, and it also helped even focus me to deal with issues like anger. Listening to Trevor Noah's interview on Howard Stern, we have to somehow figure out how to not repress maybe, but realize there are more powerful emotions than anger. Anger will bring us down, but other things can help us be more productive, where we don't deny it, but we actually say there are things that are bigger and can help more people. And like getting together like you and I are getting, and talking about this stuff, there might be frustration, but anger is for other people right now.
Right. And I think there's a number of brands that have been kind of stepping forward and trying to do the right thing. They've realized that, well, in many cases, they've realized it's not all about them, and how sad that this is what it took to help them realize that. But hey, it's a step forward, right? On March 14th, I began keeping a Google Doc about COVID-19 and corporate goodwill. And it started with just observing T-Mobile and Comcast basically making their unlimited data plan available to all of their customers. So it doesn't matter whether they had bought the plan or not. That's what they were going to get. Then I saw Grubhub releasing restaurants of the responsibility of paying fees to Grubhub. And I thought, there may be a trend here. There may be more growing. So I decided to put this Google Doc together and to trace what it is that companies were doing. And I will, I'll open this up again, do the old screen share. And you can find this, if you want to find this on your own, it's bit.ly/COVID-good, all lowercase, bit.ly/COVID-good. And I made this completely editable by the public. So I've had people contributing from all over the world, whether it's companies that are still paying hourly workers, even though they're closed, whether it's sports teams that are actually still paying their arena employees, even though there are no NBA, NHL, MLB games going on. There's companies that have extended their services to others. A lot in the arts space. I know the Berlin Philharmonica, who was it? The Detroit Symphony Orchestra, right here in Detroit, making their shows, and it's their archive now, available for everyone, streaming on demand. Many museums have been doing this.
And I think if I may say, and I just typed up that URL. By the way, learning so much new about this software, I didn't know that my guest could actually just hijack my show and share his screen. I was
Well,
like, what the hell's going on here?
you have an experienced StreamYard user with you today, my friend. So there's a difference.
I like that. And then I also took myself off at one point, you know, so that I could actually go and see if this thing was working on LinkedIn without you knowing that that's what I was doing.
I appreciated not having the competition for a moment.
Yeah, but it turns out that you're racking up the views on LinkedIn as well.
Oh, good.
Good to see that it's working as well. So if you're watching on LinkedIn right now your comments don't show up on this interface, but I'm sure LinkedIn and StreamYard are working on that, and I hope to be able to acknowledge you guys on LinkedIn as well. And I'm so thrilled that I'm live on LinkedIn too. So just want to let you know, a little shout out to the LinkedIn people over there. All right, my friend. So one of the things that, you know, I said to you, you're like Mitch in the sense, like I don't really need a discussion guide to hang out with you, especially when we're drinking, when we're drinking as well. So but the one thing that you actually said that you're doing right now is you've been not just writing, because you always write. You've got your newsletter, you've been creating content, you've been streaming live on Facebook for a long time now. But it's what you're writing on as well. And so maybe introduce that and talk a little bit about what your focus is. Is it COVID specific, or is it just really a general direction? And then I know there are 2 articles in particular that you wrote that we can talk about today.
Sure. So for many years, I had been writing a newsletter, which until recently had gone under the name The Full Monty. And what it was is basically a roundup of news stories in 8 different categories every week. It was a curation effort where I would come up with what I thought were the most significant articles and put a little commentary on there. And there would be about 60 to 70 links every week in the newsletter. And quite frankly, it just became exhausting. And as I saw more email newsletters picking up, what's old is new again, or what's new is old again, however you want to phrase it, there were publishing houses. I think about like Morning Brew, for example, which is more geared toward financial and business, but they had entire staffs of people that were doing curation on a daily basis. And I was only doing it on a weekly basis, and it was just me. It was exhausting. It wasn't really bringing me any value, even though it was bringing lots of value to the public. And I just thought there's got to be a better way. Well, I'm a classics major from my undergrad times, and I've only come to appreciate my classics education in recent years. And what I've come to appreciate about it is that I understand human nature, that I look at what we did in drama and literature and history and biographies and even architecture and politics from thousands and hundreds of years ago. And I look at what we do today, and it's the same thing. Yes, the technology is different. Yes, the platforms are updated, but human nature remains constant. And I began thinking about, well, what are the things that drive today's leaders? What do they need to understand that they're not getting? I don't need to educate them on how-to guides for TikTok or Snapchat. I mean, there are plenty of people out there that will do that and do it well. And I don't want to keep chasing trends. I want leaders to understand that they need to look beyond the shiny objects, and that they need to understand what drives humanity and what are the things that we can point to from the past. And I know this is a theme you're going to be seeing more this week with ageism, with Dean Allen toward the end of the week, looking back at the pandemic of 1918. This is exactly what I do, is help leaders identify trends of the past to predict the future. It's kind of a historian meets futurist kind of thing.
And it works beautifully with a bow tie, and I know your love and passion for Sherlock Holmes.
That's it. And what else? And fountain pens, Joe. I mean, this is all, it's where digital meets analog.
It's 420. Are you sure that's a fountain pen? I'm just asking. So I have to say, and it's been a while since, in fact, it's been years since we've had a conversation like this. How weird is it that it's happening through through a live show or through, not in person. But I feel this helps, though, to make it more personal. But I have to say, like, I feel your authentic voice. Like, I've never felt that you've had an authentic voice as powerful and distinctive as now. And I've watched you, and I think you're one of the, if I may say, you have a claim to fame, which is you were blocked on Twitter by a certain famous person.
Yeah. The president blocked me July of 2018, I think it was. I harassed him enough. I gave him, logical responses to his illogical statements. And he and Lou Dobbs, within days of each other, both blocked me. And I consider myself blessed as a result.
And from what I remember, you're a Republican as well. So,
I was a Republican for almost my entire career. And I decided to become independent. And if you look at my Twitter bio, I think it's still there, the hashtag integrity, or at least the word integrity is there, because I believe in doing what you say and saying what you do and being true to your word, being ethical. This is all part of what businesses need to understand in terms of authenticity and trust. It all circles back to the same kind of thing that we talked about years and years ago. Well, if you're a small business owner and you don't even have an online presence, you do business in your local community, what do people look for? They look for eye contact. They look for a firm handshake, and your word is your bond, like the stuff we grew up with. And I know it sounds like rah American apple pie kind of stuff, but guess what? It's human nature. This is what we need to trust each other, and it translates the same way online. And to me, integrity is everything.
Well, I flipped the two articles. First of all, let's just do the elbow bump, because we can't do the handshake right now. But, I thought maybe let me bring in one of these articles. And it was called What We Look For from Leaders During a Time of Crisis. So maybe set up this article, why you wrote it, and some of the key themes, and then we'll get into these character traits as well.
Sure. So, to me, I love crisis opportunities. I've dealt with plenty of crisis communications. I've studied a lot of it. Some of my activities while I was at Ford have actually become crisis communications case studies in journalism schools, and I'm honored to do that. So I continue to study what's been done. I look at leaders like Ernest Shackleton, who wanted to be the first to traverse the South Pole of Antarctica through the South Pole. And his ship got trapped in ice, and it suddenly became a rescue mission to see if he could bring back his entire crew alive. Spoiler alert, he did, but the leadership lessons along the way were ones that I think stand with us still today. And as I was thinking about my topic that week, and every week my newsletter has a topic, I thought about leadership in crisis. And I saw a quote from Robert Ingersoll from 1883. Nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power. Right? And I think about the leaders in power today at the federal level, at the state level, and look what they've done. Look what they've done with their power in the face of adversity. That's how we can judge them. And of course, it's going to be a political decision. People will come down on either side as to how they think about the particular leaders and their response. But to me, it's really spelled out by Jocelyn Davis in a book that I've got called The Greats on Leadership, where she looked back over history and literature, which is exactly my thing. And she looked at things like courage and integrity and resilience, how you bounce back or how you actually maintain your composure during a time. She looked at generosity, right? Are you willing to give, like many of these brands have done with the COVID good tracking that I'm doing? And concern or empathy. Albert Schweitzer said the first step in the evolution of ethics is a sense of solidarity with other human beings. Are you helping people understand that you feel their pain? We give Bill Clinton a lot of flack about saying, I feel your pain, but that was a really important part of his presidency when he expressed solidarity with other Americans by helping them to understand that he could at least grapple with what it is that they were going through.
See, can I tell you something? That as you're talking, and I'm thinking to myself, we spoke about this idea of like the absence of hate and the presence of love. The other day, we watched, my wife and my kids, we watched President Obama's endorsement of Joe Biden. And maybe in the first 30 seconds of that 11-minute address, there was more of those 5 traits than we're seeing right now. And here's the thing, because this isn't meant to be a criticism. It's meant to be this idea that if these are considered to be the proven best practices associated with leadership, we all need to look in the mirror and be able to say, how do we score as a father, as a husband, as a colleague, as a boss, as the president of the United States? You know, the emotions that I feel right now to our current leader, to our current great leader, is I feel sad. I feel bad. I feel pity. I feel a sense of remorse that we couldn't see that. And the difference is we need it. We need it so badly. We're desperate for it. And my feeling now is, in the absence of that, we have to be our own leaders.
That's right.
We have to.
That's all that's left. I mean, and to me, the role of the President of the United States in times of crisis, whether you're George W. Bush after 9/11, whether you are President Obama after I can't remember which hurricane it is, but their job is to unite people and make them feel like, don't worry, I've got this. You know, that there's somebody looking out for you. And yeah, it's kind of paternalistic and whatnot, but that's the role of a good leader, is to make people feel relief or confidence or like they're cared about. And in our current leadership at the federal level, the only thing I understand that he cares about is himself and his ratings. And I mean, I was going to use a profanity. I'll refrain from that. What we need is a sense forward to know that someone is looking out for us, not that they're looking out for themselves, because there's enough people looking out for themselves right now as we see them, you know, protesting in traffic and on foot and everywhere. We need a sense of bringing people together, not continuing to divide us. And it's got to start somewhere. And if you start with us at this level, then my gosh, then let's start it.
You know, there was another quote from that article that I wrote down, which is, anyone can steer the ship when the sea is calm. And I thought it's a brilliant quote. Obviously, you know, it stood the test of time, that quote.
Yeah.
But it's this idea, like, your character is tested, and they say that about friendship as well. And it's one of the reasons why I even reached out to you in the first place, which is your true friends are the people that show up and step up when the chips are down. And I'm not saying that even in context of us. I'm saying it's great to be able to pat someone on the back and chest beat, you know, and celebrate in the successes and the victories. One of the things I even said the other day is we should have a moratorium right now on promotions and job hires. I don't want to know that somebody just got hired or somebody got a promotion. It's insensitive and it's tone deaf. We need to be there for the people that have lost their jobs. We need to pick them up, and we need to kind of demonstrate not just that we care, but show them that we care and help them. I mean, it doesn't sound that profound, but unfortunately, these are profound words today because the bar has been so lowered. So.
There was one other thing, and I'll make this brief because I know we're running up on the hour here, and I appreciate.
You know what happens after an hour? They just, all of these streaming services and
that's it.
Services say they give us the proverbial middle finger.
There you go. But it's the article you just pulled up. How do you want to be remembered? Which I wrote back in February, and the topic that week was death. And you think, whoa, this is a little morbid, literally morbid for a newsletter. But I I don't remember exactly why. Maybe it was somebody that I knew online had passed away, and I'm seeing more and more of that these days. But it was starting to I'm of a certain age. By the way, it was my birthday over the weekend, Joe. You wouldn't get notified on Facebook because Facebook has a tracking date that's different than my actual birthday. But I turned
happy birthday.
I turned the big 50 over the weekend.
Wow, happy birthday.
Thank you. You start to think about your own mortality at a certain point. And
that was specifically for you.
There you go. Ambrose Bierce, in his Devil's Dictionary, defined epitaph as an inscription on a tomb showing that virtues acquired by death have a retroactive effect. And who wants to live like that? Who wants people to remember you differently than you actually existed in life? Why not show up every day? And as William, I think it was W.H. Auden, when Yeats died, he said, "Earth, receive an honored guest." I would hope that when it's my time, that I am thought of as an honored guest, not as somebody whose reputation has to be repaired in death. And how do you become an honored guest? Well, it's by the decisions and actions that you make and take every single day. And what we were just talking about in terms of taking that step to be more generous, more empathetic, more caring leaders. These are the steps, and not just leaders, but with relationships in your life. These are the steps that we take every single day that will impact how we are remembered when it's our time to depart. And maybe not when it's our time to depart. Maybe how we're remembered next week or next year. And I think those are steps we can all take right now.
I mean, so beautiful, and I was just enjoying listening to you, and forgetting for a second that I was the host of the show. But I was just, it was just beautiful, and I mean, Howard, Howard, he just said this is one of the most reasoned and reasonable conversations in recent memory. Thanks, gents, and happy birthday, Scott. And I jotted down a couple of things when I read your article. The one thing was, well, first of all, you mentioned, I think it was someone that that just passed away, John Hayden, and you said you didn't know him that well, but his Twitter account was in perfect balance, equal number of followers as were following him. Yeah. And I thought to myself, what will your last tweet, not just Scott's, but you guys listening right now, what will your last tweet read? What will be the last thing that you impart and share with this world? What will it be? So think about that for a second. But my question for you, Scott, is and this isn't meant to be morbid because you look pretty healthy to me. I personally am going to be asleep in about 12 seconds. But my question to you is, how will you be remembered, or how would you like to be remembered?
Oh, wow. Well, look, Joe, we've talked about a lot of things on this show, and part of it was regarding personal brands. And people have called me an expert, a guru, etc. I don't like those terms because I feel those are accolades that are, let me say it this way. I don't like applying those terms to myself, right? Those are accolades that are bestowed upon you by your peers. And so for me to say how I want to be remembered, I want to be remembered exactly the way people perceive me. And however that is, witty, obnoxious, annoying, endearing, people, again, like the political divide, people may have different opinions of me. And I would say the actions that I take every day, the content that I decide to share, the content that I decide to create, these are all the things that make up who I am and who it is that I think people should believe I am. And whatever that amounts to, that's what I hope it is.
I mean, I think it's tough to give Luke the final word because there's so much going on there in my failing eyes. What the hell is he saying? He's saying,
I totally agree about government and leadership who should care about their people and show empathy.
Oh, I get it. He's saying, thanks for the inspiring conversation, Joseph and Scott.
There you go. That's the final one.
You know what? It's Hopefully Scott will have some time. I've still got some more scotch as well. We're going to head over to the Zoom room for as long as Scott will give us, and I will give you before I pass out. These are the conversations that matter, and these are the times that matter. And it is something to think about right now, which is no matter who you are or where you are, we have these moments to connect with one another and to share and to be respectful, and to demonstrate those characteristics. The one thing, empathy is, it wasn't one of the characteristics, but it's there as one of the 5. But these are things that, as parents, you dream of, you fantasize for the moment to impart these morals, these beliefs, these values on your children. And you hope that they will pass it on as well. In the absence of leadership, we have to be the leaders. We have to step up. We have to show up. And we cannot look to the left or to the right or ahead or behind. We just have to look inside us. Yeah. And it's conversations like this that ground me and remind me that what we're all doing right now has meaning and value. I look at all I see on the screen, Scott, are the numbers of I think, Facebook people that are watching. And I think to myself, who in their right mind would spend an hour of their lives with us right now? A full hour. And probably there's no one except you and me. They go off, they go to the toilet, they go to the gym. But I just want to thank you for the opportunity to reconnect and for that honor. And we're going to move over to the Zoom room right now. You can see it in the show notes. You see it scrolling at the bottom. Joey said, this was great, Joseph. Scott is a very smart man. You see, now you've gone and ruined it, though, Joey. With a voice for radio and a face for radio. I can't make it to the Zoom room today because it's not the usual time, but cheers. And I guess Luke should have the last word. When people lead, leaders follow. Beautiful words. Guys, we will be in the Zoom room. Thank you, Scott. 1 minute left. Final words for you.
Well, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate you reaching out, and I'm glad we got to get together. And subscribe. If you're not subscribed to CoronaTV, tune in. This has been a lot of fun. And if you want to subscribe to my newsletter while you're at it, feel free.
I forgot to plug you. I forgot your plug, but I think just your words are the ultimate plug. For more information, visit scottmonty.com or Scott Monty on any media channel. You can subscribe to his newsletter, timeless and timely. The words are slurring, but the sentiment is from the heart. It's just a live read. I'm much better in the normal. All right, guys. Thank you. Tomorrow we'll be back with Wendy. We'll see you, some of you, in the Zoom room. And please take care of yourselves. Be safe. Be healthy. And just, show that leadership inside your family. Thank you, Scott.